Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the DLF Trade Show and the DLF YouTube channel. Russ, Addison, we're ready for week 1, week 2, maybe week 3, not week 4 and beyond. I'm not there yet. I don't know about you. I'm excited there's football. I got to watch about a quarter and a half of the Giants game before I realized, why am I watching the Giants game, and turned it off. Because my NFL Plus would not load on my TV, so I couldn't get Red Zone, and they're about to get a very angrily worded email like, how dare they make me watch this Giants game? Like, I should get a credit for this.
You should definitely get something to watch. Everybody who watched that Giants game should have some sort of a reward.
Yeah, like if the jerseys themselves weren't bad enough. Just because it's old and classic doesn't mean it's good.
It's so bad.
It's so bad.
They somehow ruined Malik Neighbors ruined his debut wearing number 1. They somehow ruined all of that.
Which the beginning of the game, they went into this big speech about the retired numbers and how number 1 was the first retired number. And then here's Malik Neighbors wearing number 1. So what you're saying is it's not retired.
Nope. I think he asked the dude. He asked the guy, the player, and he was just like, "Yep, it's not retired, but we're just gonna make it look really ugly in these really ugly jerseys."
Wouldn't it be funny if the only reason they had those jerseys was that stipulation? It's like, you could have my number, but it's got to look bad.
You have to make it look really bad. It has to be the exact same jersey that I wore 60 years ago, and then you can wear it.
That's so much fun to think about. Of course, that's not what happens, but how great would that be?
Yep.
All right. So as I started off jokingly saying, it's week 1 is in the books. It's happened. It was less than thrilling in most cases. So what we're doing today is we're talking about some week 1 overreactions, because there are across the league so many things to react to right now. And this first player we're going to talk about right away, game 1, Mark Andrews. Look, and this is something I'm going to end up saying over and over again throughout this entire show, because I'm saying it every time I've talked about anything with week 1. Ever since changing the preseason to 3 games, week 1 has turned into preseason week 4.
Essentially.
These players have not played together. They are not up to game speed, and especially Mark Andrews, who's coming back from an injury, doesn't have a lot of real reps under his belt. Even practice isn't the same. So he's coming back trying to get that leg under him. So I didn't expect Mark Andrews. But, oh man, this was bad. And not to mention the breakout of Isaiah Likely. I don't care. I'm saying he caught 2 touchdowns. I don't... By a toenail, he was on the out-of-bounds line. They just should have been that's cool enough. Let's just give it to him. That's taking that touchdown away. They should feel bad about it. So seeing the lack of usage, he didn't look great. He's 29, but I don't care about that as a tight end. But I think I am rose-colored glasses, but I know a lot of people are terrified of Mark Andrews right now, especially because one of the players that did do so well was another tight end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was the main issue, is that had the Ravens offense just in general just kind of sputtered, or Derrick Henry was mad successful on the ground, and then maybe Zay Flowers was the leading receiver, and Andrews didn't really do anything and Likely didn't do anything, then I don't think we would see this much panic. It would just be it's just kind of a weird down game for everybody. But it's just the fact that Andrews didn't do anything and Likely did everything. As I would think that has a lot of people scared. But coincidentally, so the game happened Thursday night. I do a Friday afternoon AMA. So this was a big time conversation that Friday afternoon. And Andy Holloway, I shared a tweet from Andy Holloway from the Fantasy Footballers, said that he went back, watched every single snap and route from Mark Andrews, and said that his takeaway was that it was the Chiefs' defensive plan to take Mark Andrews out of the game. When they got down in the red zone, they doubled and triple teamed Mark Andrews, and that led to a lot of dump offs for Isaiah Likely, dump offs to Justice Hill. So they just kind of like game planned for Andrews, and they didn't want anything to basically be thrown deep. That's why like Zay Flowers had 6 receptions, but only 39 yards. And Likely, like the vast majority of Likely's receptions outside of that one insane touchdown that actually did stand, that he broke a few tackles for. But a lot of his highlights, if you go back and watch the receptions, it was just like he caught a ball in the flat, ran for 8 yards. He caught a ball 4 yards up the middle, turned around, ran for another 6 for a first down. That was what Isaiah Likely did, which was what Mark Andrews was supposed to be doing. But I think because they were taking away Andrews from the game plan, just led to the ball going elsewhere. So I'm not necessarily worried about Andrews yet either, but I'm a big Andrews fan. Hopefully it's not just rose-colored glasses.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to these trades to see what it feels like in the ether, in the world. 12-team super flex with a 2 point per reception for tight ends. Mark Andrews and Gardner Minshew for JJ McCarthy and Rashad Bateman. All right. So we have a pretty clear rebuild versus competing here. Because we have a quarterback who's not playing this year, and Rashad Bateman, who almost had a catch on Thursday.
He did have that one catch. That was one.
Oh, that's right.
Catch.
Yes, he did have one catch. Right, man. I had hopes for Bateman, and it did not. It did not pan out. So Mark Andrews in at 453.8, but I think we need to slap on a bunch of extra points because again, the tight end premium button on the trade analyzer is really a 0.5 premium.
Mm-hmm.
This is one, like that's a lot. So like we're probably adding what 20% back on. So instead of 453.8, I'm good at putting him at a little over 500 or at 500.
Yeah, over 500 for sure, if not even closer to 550 maybe.
Yeah, I felt like my numbers may have gotten a little overexcited, so I hedged as I was saying the real number. Gardner Minshew at 51 for, I mean, let's just say a total of 565. Let's settle somewhere in the middle because it doesn't really matter because JJ McCarthy is in at 269, Rashad Bateman 28 for a total of 297. So regardless of how much we add to the Andrews side, this is clearly Andrews by himself, according to the analyzer.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know is this too low on McCarthy? I get that he's not playing the year, but to a rebuilding team, I feel like his value still should be higher. I know I think a lot more dynasty value than a lot of the world. Like I don't dock players like McCarthy for not scoring points because chances are he wasn't going to be crushing it anyway. You want him to be your QB3. If he was your QB2, you were probably in trouble anyway. So like I think he's probably docked too many points for me in the analyzer for not playing this year. That being said, I still think the answer is Andrews. Like if we were talking during the rookie draft, I would not trade Andrews to get into the draft to draft McCarthy.
Right. Like if you're looking at McCarthy was at the 6, 7, 8 range. For me, he was the 8 behind Odunze and Bowers. That's where he ultimately basically ended up after lots of thoughts and consideration, but he was somewhere in between 6 to 8 consensusly. And yeah, I would not have traded at that time. I would not have traded Mark Andrews for that pick. I would have gladly traded that pick for Mark Andrews. And I would still hold to that today, especially with JJ McCarthy being out for a year. Now I understand, like you said, that there's like a rebuild contending aspect to this, where JJ McCarthy is probably more valuable to a rebuilder that is already looking towards 2025.
Yeah.
And so I completely understand that. I still feel like I would have wanted a better piece than Rashad Bateman.
I'm still with you on that. Yeah, for sure. Like that should have been. Okay, so I was about to say that should have been a young wide receiver. Bateman's 24, but like one that has a chance at something.
Right. Like this could have been Jameson Williams before, Sunday night.
Yeah.
Because if this trade was done Friday or Saturday as a like, oh crap, Mark Andrews is not good, or the other person's trying to buy low on Mark Andrews after the game, we didn't have Sunday or Monday games yet played. So it could have been Jameson Williams, or it could have been, some other kind of like a Christian Watson kind of player, maybe, if this was done before Friday.
Next trade, 12-team, 1 quarterback, non-tight end premium. We have Mark Andrews traded for a 25 first and the newly extended Patrick J. Freiermuth.
J. I did not know the middle initial was in there.
Me neither. I just picked a letter.
That you didn't actually know that?
I have no idea what his middle name is. But when I realized I wanted to say Patrick, I'm like, I need to throw him.
It is J.
It is?
Yes. Patrick John Freiermuth. Go play the lottery today, buddy. His name's PJ. I'm gonna start calling him PJ from now on.
PJ Muth.
PJ Muth.
Yes. PJ Muth. That's his new name. All right. So Mark Andrews coming in at 392.7 by himself, a 25 first, 334. PJ Muth in at 70 for a total of 404. I like this. I want Russell Wilson to start more than just because he's my QB2 on my SFB team, but I think he's a better quarterback. If we're looking for fantasy points out of the Pittsburgh's quarterback position, then Justin Fields is the answer. But for a quarterback for the rest of the team, I think Russell Wilson's the right answer. Mm-hmm. And even still, I don't know if I feel like I'm not starting Freiermuth in a non-premiumed league.
I think he has become a consideration to be a starter if you really don't have anybody else, like it's like him and Dallas Goedert and Dalton Schultz. Like they feel like they're in this tier of like, they're good enough, but they don't feel strong enough for like to have a lot of confidence in for fantasy. But I think Freiermuth could enter that. I mean, he had a pretty solid week 1. It was him and George Pickens. Those are the only 2 options.
That's all that's there.
Steelers have. And I think with the fact that it was Justin Fields, they didn't move the ball well against Atlanta's defense. They didn't score a single. I don't even think they got inside the red zone. I can't remember. I watched the whole game. I can't remember if they got in the red zone or not. But I think a lot of that was Justin Fields, and I think Russell Wilson will be better. So if it is just Pickens and Freiermuth, I think Muth becomes very startable more weeks than not moving forward with Russell Wilson. And I wonder if that's kind of coming into play here, where you're already trading Mark Andrews for a first, and I'd like that value. Like I think that's pretty fair. So then adding the upside of maybe Pat Freiermuth replaces Mark Andrews in your starting lineup. Yeah. Especially if Andrews is no longer Andrews and he's taking a back seat, or not even taking a back seat, splitting with Isaiah Likely, and Muth is getting 100% of the tight end touches and the wide receiver 2 duties technically in Pittsburgh. That could, maybe that's not that big of a difference, Yeah,
I don't get me wrong. I'm still aboard the Roman Wilson train when he starts to play. But yeah, Muth is the only tight end, and he's the over the middle guy, at least in their old offense. But who knows? That doesn't really mean much anymore, I guess. This is fine. Like, this is a good tier down. Assuming you're not competing, it's great because you get younger and you give this Pittsburgh team time to gel together, and maybe Muth is more worked into everything. Like, I do like this trade, but also I'm completely fine with this the other way around. Like I said before, right now I'm not thrilled starting Muth, and if I'm competing, throwing what I hope to be the 112 and a guy I'm not thrilled about to go get Andrews. Like, the thing is, this isn't a buy low. Like, this is it's a little buy low. This is buy injured player price. This isn't by guy coming off of a really bad week after being injured price. Does that make sense?
Yes. This was the price. You could have bought Mark Andrews for this a week ago.
Yeah.
Or 2 weeks ago in August.
So if you're out here looking to go and try and buy low on some Mark Andrews, just take that into account. Take it into account that you shouldn't be paying injured player prices. You should be playing injured players who just had a bad first game back prices, which is a little bit lower. I mean, honestly, that probably equals getting a third thrown on top of Andrews. Like, this isn't egregious at all, but still, if this isn't an overreaction trade, let's try and make some overreaction trades.
Boom.
Speaking of, Jordan Mason He did good. And then Shanahan threw him under a bus after the game. Like, time to leave the stadium. Oh, Jordan, whoop, with the whole press conference and post game stuff. Yeah. But look, CMC's not going to miss that much time. They're going to, like, my guess is he misses the next game, and then after that, it's a pain tolerance thing. In which case, look, this is the NFL. They're going to shoot his Achilles full of so much painkillers that he'll be fine. Like, I'm seeing a lot of Jordan Mason for seconds. And I would sell for a second every single time.
Funny enough that you say it, like a lot of second round picks for Jordan Mason. That was the most popular, like 1-for-1 trade in the analyzer. He never got bumped up. I didn't see any first round picks because I don't think we're there yet.
Would be some overreaction.
But I think we could get to the point where he is being traded for first. Like if we find out this Christian McCaffrey injury is way more severe and he's put on IR, not even like season ending IR, but like just 4-week IR with the possibility that maybe it's 5 or 6 weeks or something like that, because this is like Achilles tendonitis. They keep saying the word Achilles and it's scaring the crap out of me. I could see that if he misses an extended period of time that we could get first round picks for Jordan Mason, especially if he continues to produce somewhere near the level that he did Monday night, not like 150 yards every single week, but like, is a very competent top 15 running back replacement for CMC. I could see first round picks getting thrown out at that point.
But let's see what these trades are. 12 team, 1 quarterback, running back for running back, straight up Jordan Mason for Tyjae Spears. Spears got a little less work than I would have liked. It was Pollard for like the first, quarter and a half. Like it was a while before Spears came on.
Pollard is the RB1, everybody.
Yeah, it like they talked about being a 50-50 split, but I think it was closer to like 60-40, 70, not 75, 65-35-ish.
I think it was over. I thought I saw that Pollard had maybe 75 or 80% of the rushing.
Was it that high?
94.
Yeah, he only had 4 attempts but he had 4 targets for 4 receptions, so that's why his PPR score looked decent. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's Pollard's house. I mean, this could be a double overreaction. Is this an overreaction to a workload situation in week 1 for Spears versus a McCaffrey injury overreaction for Jordan Mason? Like, first of all, let's the analyzer. Jordan Mason, 19.5. Tyjae Spears, 153.3.
Yeah, the analyzer is not going to react fast enough to Mason's climbing value over the past 3 days, essentially.
Yes.
This could be an overreaction to both, like you said. I don't mind that. This happened yesterday, Tuesday. So this is post game, but also like while we're hearing all this like Achilles tendonitis stuff with McCaffrey. I will tell you this. If Jordan Mason is a starter for a handful of games, like 5 or 6 games, I think I'd rather have him than Tyjae Spears for the 2024 season. I would much rather have Spears for Dynasty because his role and workload, and he himself is like a very valuable handcuff in that if he were to have the backfield to himself like Mason has right now, that I think Spears would be tremendous in that role. It's just that Mason has that role currently until CMC comes back, if he ever does. It seems like Jordan Mason's going to have the same role in week 2.
Yes.
So there is that. I just don't know how long it is until CMC comes back and is CMC again. That's
really it. This is the gamble you're taking, which I think if you've watched this show long enough, I'm not really one to gamble all that much. If Jordan Mason doesn't have another full workload game after week 2, this is a pretty decent L.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Especially because of Addison just reminding us how long McCaffrey is now under contract for.
Yeah. But if we found out today that McCaffrey isn't going to come back until like week 10, then I just made that number up. Then I feel like I would take Jordan Mason in this.
I probably would too, because 10 weeks of that workload is worth losing out on some dynasty value on what, like you said, first of all, pretty much a handcuff or at best a committee back.
Right. And Spears is probably your RB3, maybe your RB4 on your team. And that, you can that. I feel like there's not a lot of dynasty value to be lost there if you missed out on Jordan Mason like that, with the opportunity cost being Tyjae Spears as a committee guy.
Yeah. All right, next trade, 12-team Superflex, Devontae Adams and Jordan Mason for a 25 first and 25 third. Devontae Adams, 233, Jordan Mason, 25 for a total of 257. 25 first, 294, 25 third, 42 for a total of 335. Ugh, I'm just taking the picks and figuring it out later. Like, Adams will be fine. I know that offense was bad, but let's go Brock Bowers. And everything we talked about Jordan Mason still stands. There's no reason to go through all of that again. Adams isn't worth a first on his own anymore. Jordan Mason is pretty much worth a second. So this is 2 seconds for a first and a third, which checks out. That's fine, but just give me the picks.
It feels like you could do, even if you're competing, I feel like you could just do a lot more with that 2025 first. And maybe that's not necessarily a piece that you have to trade away right now either.
Yeah.
I feel like there's too much risk. Devontae Adams, that offense is terrible. Gardner Minshew is awful. Brock Bowers is amazing. So there's risk there with Devontae Adams at his age. There's risk with Jordan Mason that we just laid out. I just feel like I'd rather have that 2025 first, and I'd rather add to that first and go get, Waddle or Nico or somebody like that if you need the wide receiver, or just trade that first for like a Josh Jacobs and then you're set there.
Yeah.
Then
I was going to say, if you're going for a player that's old and almost worth the first, go get Mike Evans. Steph Diggs is a little worrisome, but
go buy Cooper Kupp. I'd rather pay the first for just Kupp right now.
Throw in that third just to get the deal done. First and third for Cooper Kupp right now. Boom.
Yep.
Of course, that needs to be on a team who doesn't want Cooper Kupp on their team and everything, but
true.
Yeah. All right, so let's move now to two players that are okay. Two players. They're two wide receivers, both drafted out of the same year. First one is Drake London. Second one, Chris Olave. Both of them sort of left out of their offenses this past week.
Bad week ones.
Let's start with Drake London because you have his trade first. Now, I know Drake London is on here because, well, both of these guys were your guys. I think most of this comes down to give Kirk Cousins a minute, man. Like, that's really what this is. I'm thrilled that Kyle Pitts caught a touchdown. Let's go. But, like, Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles, is on a new team and a new offense. Just give him a few minutes. I'm like, with horrible quarterback play, Drake London's secondary and tertiary stats always looked good. Of course, the unfortunate receptions, yards, and touchdowns, the important ones, were a little rough. Drake London is good. There's proof of that. Now we just need to let Kirk Cousins get his feet literally and metaphorically underneath him, and that offense will just get better.
Mm-hmm.
I
hope as well. I think my fear in Drake London is Kirk Cousins going to put it all together this year and get healthy? And then that fear, after what I saw from Kirk Cousins Sunday, that fear kind of carried over to Aaron Rodgers on Monday night, and Rodgers did not look all that great either. Although he at least fed Garrett Wilson, but there are fewer mouths to feed in New York than there are in Atlanta. So maybe and I also believe that Garrett Wilson is just a better wide receiver than Drake London at this point too. But my fear with both of these players, London, the reason why I put both of these guys on here is that they are coming into the season. They were on precipices of, if they don't have that year 3 breakout, is that the plural of precipice?
I really just want to say precipi.
They were on value precipi.
Yes.
That's
wrong, but I love it.
if they did not break out this year, that both of their values are going to tank. Garrett Wilson was kind of in that, but I think we had more trust in Garrett Wilson based on what he did with really, really bad quarterbacks.
Most targets of the first 2 years in your career, that is literally showing that you're getting open and that you're talented. It's just that the QB plays atrocious.
Exactly. Yeah. He had 11 targets Monday night. That was insane. London and Olave did not have that.
They did not have that.
So that fear and risk, I think, carried into week 1 for me. And then I saw both of them put up a dud, and I'm just kind of like, oh, it's starting.
The
It's,
difference
they have to
being
make
that
up more.
the Saints scored what, like 40 something points, and Olave was
And
not
Olave
part of that.
was not part of any of it.
I mean, I always sort of assumed that Derek Carr was the problem for Olave, and was really hoping they'd do something about that. But his contract, that's not going to happen. Plus, they just put up 40 something points.
Yeah.
But let's get to these trades. Let's see how we feel about the players. 12-team, 1 quarterback, Drake London for Josh Jacobs and Rashid Shaheed. I'm going to tell you right now, if we're not getting return yardage, I'm still holding on to onto the wide receiver here. Like, Josh Jacobs is fine. There's no depth behind him. The next few games he's going to get a lot of volume, but that's going to be rough with Malik Willis
this week. He's got a fantastic matchup this week against Indy. I will give him that. But
yeah,
yes, I agree. It's the offense in general might sputter, and
10 out of 11 got defensive players in the box. It's going to be a little tough for Josh Jacobs. But I mean, this week, notwithstanding, Rashid Shaheed's fine. If you get points for return yardage, clearly he's a lot finer. All you SFBers out there who just didn't care and drafted him in like the second, good for you. He was a top
6th round. I got him in the 6th. He scored 35 fantasy points.
Yeah, so. He was a top 10 scorer. I was going to grab him in the 8th, and someone took him 3 picks before me. I should have just done it. I was silly. But again, like 26-year-old running back, 23-year-old wide receiver. I don't care if I'm looking to score points. I can't do that to myself. Rashid Shaheed's 26. I had no idea he was that old. Not that it really matters, but like, to Drake London 675.5, Josh Jacobs 295, Rashid Shaheed 49 for a total of 344. This is very easily Drake London for me, even if you are trying to score points.
Yep, I do agree with that one. If this is the fear around Drake London, I'm buying because there's a couple overreactions happening at once, and this is honestly, people in the comments will probably be like, "Oh, this would never happen in my league," but like, great, that's your league, but there are also hundreds of other leagues out there where people are so overreactionary to week 1, and if you can pull something off like this, I mean, you could throw out trades, and the worst they could say is LOL no, and then just hit reject. I mean, that's like the worst that's going to happen. So you could give it a shot. If I was selling Drake London, I definitely need a better wide receiver than Rashid Shaheed coming back. I need, maybe it's Jaden Reed or JSN or George Pickens or somebody along that lines where you are dropping down a couple of tiers at the wide receiver spot, and then you're picking up Josh Jacobs, but at least you're getting somebody that you feel more confident in replacing Drake London's production in your lineup, even if you don't believe that Drake London is going to break out. Which I will say, at least in London's defense, remember last year he donated us in week 1, and then in week 2 he put up 19 fantasy points. So
yeah, that's true.
We have a historical precedence of a sample size of 1 year where Drake London did not show up in week 1, and we'll see what happens this week.
But when that small sample size is biased in your direction, yeah, it makes sense.
Use it 100% of the time. When he's bad in week 1, he's great in week 2.
There you go. Love it. Yes. All right. So the Olave trade. 10-team, 1 quarterback. Chris Olave and Najee Harris for Travis Etienne, a 25 first, and Tucker Kraft. Chris Olave, 729. Whew. 1 quarterback, right. Najee Harris, 122 for a total of 851. Travis Etienne, 568 to 25 first, 334. Tucker Kraft, 14 for a total of 916. So we have this best player, least amount of assets. We're overpaying 65 points. I mean, that's not a lot, but still we are overpaying a little bit. I do still have faith in the Steelers offense more to be better than they were this week. So I like Najee Harris. I'm good giving him that value. Like, I don't think he should be worth less, even though I know there's plenty that probably do. I think I take the ETN in the first side.
Yeah.
And I don't like that I'm doing that. The problem being, even if Olave has a good season, he'll probably score as many points as ETN. ETN's only 25. He's not going anywhere. He's still going to get most of the workload as long as he doesn't fumble on the goal line.
And so I was going to ask you, because I know maybe you're not a Tank Bigsby fan, but I know you're a fan of Tank Bigsby because of the name. But are you were you at all concerned about ETN's week 1? Because maybe there's some overreaction that could be had from that.
Coaches do stupid crap like that all the time to send a message. Like, remember anytime a Belichick running back fumbled at all, they got benched for the rest of the game?
Yeah, feels bad.
Like, this was just something stupid. Like, I'm not concerned about that at all. If Olave has a good season and ETN has a good season, they'll probably score the same amount of points. There's less risk in ETN. And that's what this is about. This is about mitigating risk while scoring the same amount of points and getting a first on top. Even if Najee has a decent season, and for Najee, a decent season is probably mid RB2, like a high-end RB2 if we're lucky.
Yeah.
Then I still don't care, because give me that first and I can get someone better than Najee Harris with that first. Like, to me, if I'm rebuilding, why am I giving up a first to go get Olave? If I'm not rebuilding, why? I don't know. Like, this trade, I don't see the Olave side. Like, I don't like, this is pure Olave fan going and getting Olave because they believe the breakout's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I see in this.
I think
that's another team's first and it's like a super late one.
That's a good point. But I do think that first is a very valuable piece to this trade, because it feels like it has the most insulated value. Because there is, like you said, like Olave could plummet. That 730 value could be in the 400s by next year, in just a few months if he doesn't break out.
I was about to say maybe next month if this keeps happening.
ETN could be down in the 400s too. Especially if some of these younger running backs start to take hold, and as we get into next offseason, maybe we have some rookie running backs in next year's class that start to take hold because ETN will be 26. And if you lost somewhere to Tank Bigsby, there's a lot of that. Najee Harris had 21 touches on Sunday for 79 yards.
And it's a very Najee Harris stat line.
It's a very Najee stat line, and they won by 8. So there you go. There's that. So that first really feels like the most flexible and stable asset in this entire deal, to where I think that I'm pretty fine with the Olave ETN swap, that I very much want the first over Najee Harris. And you get the fun dart throw of Tucker Kraft, who appears to be the tight end 1 in Green Bay, for whatever that's worth.
Not much, especially with Malik Willis as the.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is the end of the trades we have, and the end of our overreactions. Though I do want to say we pulled off a trade in the Watchers League. Pulled off is a very strong phrase because it was sent to us and we accepted it. But I like talking about our trade, so let's talk about it. We sent Geno Smith for a 25-second, and it's really funny. Like, I message Addison, I'm like, we should do this, right? Like, Geno, while technically our QB4, I think scored the most of our quarterbacks.
Yikes!
This past week,
did he really?
I think so. What do we have?
Did.
Burrow, Kyler,
and Stafford.
And Geno. Geno's the only one that scored 20 points.
You are correct.
But still, you're never going to get a first for Geno. It's just not going to happen. And I think we're better off getting that pick so we have a more flexible trade asset down the line when we need to start replacing players. Like, wait, is this the league? We have Puka, right?
Yeah, we have. Yes, we have Puka in this one.
Like, so we might need to find a replacement for him, in which case we try and throw that second towards a Cooper Evans type player. Like, to me, and it takes a specific team to want Geno Smith. It doesn't take a specific team to want a 25-second.
Exactly.
So I thought that was a trade we had to take. Addison agreed, and we took it.
Yep. Yeah, it was just more flexibility, like you said, because now I have fewer decisions to make whenever I set our lineups at the quarterback position, which not that there was really. There wasn't super much of a decision.
You're starting Burrow and Murray every single week.
Burrow might. I'm going to have a decision between Burrow and Stafford, depending on matchups, I think. But Kyler, I was starting every single week. Geno, I was basically not. So Geno was kind of expendable.
Comes back, everything will be fine.
Yes, I will agree with that. But yeah, Geno was kind of expendable. So like you said, just moving him for a draft pick that everybody wants and doesn't take up a roster spot. It's all about the flexibility for this, and we'll keep going. We're 1-0 though, on our way to repeating.
On that very positive note, this has been the DLF Trade Show on the DLF YouTube channel. Russ Fisher, Dynasty Outhouse, Addison Hayes at AmazeHayes_. We'll catch you next time.